So I also had lots of boy cousins and grew up being one of the only girls on my dad's side of the family. But I don't know, we weren't like a crazy Husker football family. We watched games and stuff, and I suppose it was probably about high school time where I started really loving to listen to the games. Like Kent Pavelka's voice is my spirit animal. But my first year of college was 1995. So I remember watching that 94 championship.
Okay.
Yeah, decent, right? But yeah, that 94 championship and like everybody out on the streets partying on O Street and everything, and just thinking, I'm going to be there next year. And so we started off strong when I was in college, and that's where I really, Husker football really got its hooks in me.
Well, Husker football got its hooks in her back in the mid-90s, and it hasn't let go since. We welcome to the fan forum Husker superfan, Husk Girl, Amy. How you doing, Amy?
Hey, good. Good to see you tonight.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. As we talked about, I think on the Husk Girls show, Amy and I have known each other for a long time, back in the college days. We're going to get to a little bit of that here in a minute. But first, to go through some of our upcoming shows and some of the promotions. On Wednesday night, we'll have Brett Ciance with Pick Six Previews. He'll be joining us at 8 p.m. So that's Wednesday night. And we'll be talking about national Big Ten stuff and then also Nebraska football, of course. We also have the Hail Varsity code or use the promo code REDCAST at hailvarsity.com/subscribe. Get $10 off the yearly subscription. Alumni Hall, 2 Lincoln locations, downtown 1120 P Street and South Point Pavilions, 2910 Pine Lake Road. That's right behind the Barnes & Noble. And a whole bunch of good Husker gear there. Go get yourself some there. FSC Edge, if you're looking to make a career change, Redcasters, go to www.jobs@fscedge.com. And custom shirts and specialty items, Smack and Smooch. You can find them on Twitter and Facebook at Smack and Smooch. That's Shane and Laura out there in Elwood. All right.
I've got my Smack and Smooch shirt on today.
There we go. Yes,
Nice.
we are dressed for the occasion here. For the fan formers who are new to this, basically the whole premise of the fan forum is that we bring different guests from all different generations, backgrounds, everything on that are Husker fans. We ask them the same 4 questions. Why are you a Husker fan? What is your favorite Husker fan memory? And who are your all-time favorite Huskers? And how do you think the Huskers will do next year? But before we get to that, let's just kind of sit back, chat a little bit. Amy, we've been friends for a long time. You're out there in the Bitterroot Mountains of Montana. You've been a Husker fan, like you said, I mean, dating all the way back, but you've had a professional career that's taken you to Kansas City. You're up in Montana, and you've maintained that Husker fandom. What's it like to be a Husker fan that's not located right here in Lincoln area like I am?
I was thinking about this when we were getting ready for the show, and I haven't lived in Nebraska for a long time, and I, sad as it sounds, I've lived more of my life outside of Nebraska than in Nebraska now, and I hate that because I love Nebraska so much.
Mm-hmm.
But it was fantastic living in Kansas City, especially during like the Big 12 years, because there were it's such a conglomeration of everybody from the states around that you could come into the office on Monday and you could, give the Tigers and the Jayhawks a hard time. And there's somebody there from Oklahoma and K-State. And you really had a good conference feel. And Kansas City is just such a great sports town too. Everybody loves sports. And so that was kind of a heyday of football fandom, Husker fandom outside of Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we moved to the Big Ten, and there's not too many Big Ten people around, or there weren't, at least around where I was working my years in Kansas City. And then I moved out here to Montana, and I was able to get the Cornhusker license plate in Montana, and that tells you how few Cornhuskers there are out here. So it's kind of hard. Like I've always been a very, emotional and intense, dyed in the red Husker fan, and so everybody always knows me as that. But I realized in our last Husk Girls podcast, like I don't get to associate with other Huskers as much as I would like to. And it it really gave me a charge to be able to do that. And, to connect with the show and be able to talk football and think about football and have that connection back into Nebraska, even though I'm living so far away.
Mm-hmm. Well, and fan formers or redcasters, I guess I can call them whatever here, that are following along. That video at the very beginning of Amy, that was from our Husk Girls episode we did back in March or April. So you can go back on our YouTube channel. You can go and watch that again. That was a great episode if you haven't seen that yet. But yeah, so when you're in Kansas City, Nebraska played there in the Big 12 title game against Oklahoma. Were you at that game?
See, yes and no. I tailgated at that game, and It was freezing. It was so cold. I had some cousins who came into town, and we were all adults by then, or most of us were, and so we tailgated, and it just froze our butts off. And then I went back home and sat in front of my fireplace and watched the game while they froze themselves even more. And the way the game turned out, I was really happy that I had made that decision. I didn't really like it very much at the time, but in hindsight, it worked out pretty nice.
Yeah, good choice. Boomer went to that game, and he still talks about that's the coldest he's ever been, and thankfully he had some adult beverages that he could drink with him there. But you mentioned you were there with some of your cousins. I don't know if this would have been one of the cousins, but one of them is Brandon Vogel. We've had him on, and maybe this will kind of lead us into a little bit of the first conversation here. I asked him a question because you're from Hemming Ford. Very clear that's Ford and not Ferd for anyone.
Well done.
So you are out there in western Nebraska, which is just slightly west of Seward, right? Is it where does western Nebraska begin, Amy? Is it Kearney? Is it Grand Island?
It's definitely not Kearney or Grand Island. There is so much western Nebraska west of that.
You used to get, I used to say that. I'd be like, yeah, we're going out to Grand Island. We're going to western Nebraska. And it would just drive you nuts. But so growing up in the Panhandle, that's a different, upbringing as a Husker fan than growing up right over here. And so I asked Brandon this question. I'll ask it after we watch this. I'll ask you as well.
I went to one Nebraska game as a kid, essentially. My first game. So I was in high school. Freshman year was 94, senior year was 97, 98. So as good as it gets in terms of Nebraska's on-field performance. But my parents, we went to one Nebraska game. It was 1987, Oklahoma, Nebraska. So not one that went the Huskers' way, but a pretty historical and meaningful game for your first one. But it's 6 hours away.
6 hours away.
Yeah, if you're driving fast.
If you're driving fast. Well, let's lead with the first question. And with that fresh in mind, Amy, why are you a Husker fan?
Yeah, it just comes down to being a Nebraskan. I think, there's something to it that it's what you do when you're a Nebraskan. I never was that excited about NFL or anything else. And I wasn't going to be a Colorado fan or a Wyoming fan, even though I lived. So I think Hemmingford is closer to 5 other state capitals than our own state capital. I think that's what somebody told me once. And definitely closer to Denver and Rapid City and, a lot of places. But, I'm a Nebraskan, and I love Nebraska and I love the Huskers. And I had a couple of neat experiences. I like Brandon, I didn't go to a Husker game until I was a freshman in college. So even a little bit later in life. So I was pumped to get my tickets when we got the packet. You get the acceptance letter, but I was more excited to get the football ticket letter. It said you can apply for tickets now. I'm like, oh, this is so great. And I had my freshman year tickets. I was solo. I didn't sit with a group or anything. And I was in the 3rd row, right behind the goalpost in South Stadium. And so I was so close. I was behind the goalpost, but I was so close. It was great. So anyway, but I had some cool experiences before that kind of got me hooked on Lincoln and on the Huskers. I was in 4-H, and so I got to make a few trips to Lincoln for state fair, and really loved Lincoln there. I had this really cool program. They did this in the probably would have been late 80s, I guess. I was in 7th and 8th grade. But the university had an outreach program to rural students, girls who went to rural schools. And I went to a little one-room country schoolhouse, like Little House on the Prairie schoolhouse. And they had an outreach program for science and math and technology for girls in rural Nebraska. And so they had, it was called WISE. So it was Women Investigating Sciences and the Environment. And we had a little hub in Chadron, because Chadron State College, and then Wayne State and Kearney. And then we had our little camps there, and then we all got together, all 45 of us, and we're in Lincoln for a week too. And so I got to be on the campus in 7th and 8th grade also. And I just fell in love with it. I love, it was just one of those meant to be things. And the funny part was, I didn't think that I would be able to go to UNL. Like I just, everybody I knew had gone to Chadron, and I thought that's just kind of was predestined for me as well. And I was also kind of just dumb and innocent. And I can remember clearly my mom telling me once, she's like, you could go to Lincoln. I'm like, really? I could go to Lincoln? This is great.
Well, how far is Chadron from Hemingford?
So Chadron's about, from Hemingford, it's probably about 45 minutes. I lived about 15 minutes outside Hemingford even. So I actually lived in Dawes County. So I was about 30 minutes from Chadron. So
I say you're from Hemingford, but you were on a ranch out there then, or farm?
Yep, farm and ranch. Yep.
Farm and ranch.
And I did like kindergarten through 8th grade. I went to a country school, and we had like tops, we had 13 kids in all grades from kindergarten through 8th grade. So
that's my wife, Kathy. She went to a one-room schoolhouse through 4th grade, and I think she and you might have talked about that.
Yeah,
last
I think
summer.
so.
And how rare that is. Like, yeah, I mean, that is like Little House on the Prairie kind of stuff. We went to a one-room schoolhouse and everything, but that's so cool. And it's also cool. There's all these different outreach programs that the university does, today and everything, and how those programs really do have value. What you mentioned with the one that you were in there, how that, it just gives people exposure to the university, to Lincoln, that maybe wouldn't have had that opportunity too. So that's really cool to hear.
Yeah. And it really, I don't know that the program is still going anymore. I think it was just a few years, but it really had a significant impact on my life besides getting me to Lincoln. This is extravagant, but they gave each of us a computer and a modem because it was late 80s, and taught us how to use it. And we were, young girls getting on the very first bulletin board systems through our university system and our state colleges. And that got me into technology. And it was just having that access to it that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And now I work in technology. I always have. And I don't think I'd be here probably if it weren't for that. So that's awesome. I owe a lot to UNL. Even though I don't owe a lot to them anymore.
Yeah, you paid what you owed.
I paid a lot.
Yeah, same there, right? Well, one of the things, and I want to keep on the panhandle thing for a second too, because I think it's, you mentioned something about, it's this pride of being from Nebraska and living there, and anything inside the border, you're from Nebraska. And I can remember going out, one of our first trips, Kathy and I did as a couple, we went out to like Black Hills, and, we were gone for about a week. And I don't know, the way I am, when I get back into the state, like the second I'm done with the trip, when we cross the border and there's a Nebraska sign, I mean, it just feels like it's home. And here we are, we're passing over, probably by Chadron, I guess, and we're coming in. And then I remember we drove through Alliance, and there's these Husker flags out and all this. And I mean, we couldn't be further away from home still. It's still 6 hours away, but it absolutely felt like we were in Nebraska. I mean, the red is out, there's Herbies and stuff on people's, driveways and all that. And so what's the experience like growing up a Husker fan, but growing up 6 hours away? Is it like what Brandon said there, hey, you don't get to make it down as often, or is it no different of a feeling than when you lived in Lincoln?
I think there's definitely a sense of belonging, like you talked about. You start seeing the flags and the hats and the coats and everything. And we wore, we had our Husker starter jackets and stuff like that. We dressed probably a lot like the kids did in Lincoln and in the eastern half of the state. So you definitely have that belonging piece of it. I, being a little bit older, we didn't have the games on TV as often, of course, but we listened on the radio. And I should say this, you played that clip at the beginning, and I have a little bit of an asterisk I have to add to that, because I was totally thinking of my dad's side when I was saying that piece. My mom's side had some good Husker fans on it. In fact, my grandma, my mom's mom, was a big Husker fan. She went to UNL and met my grandpa there. And I have a couple of aunts who watch every volleyball game and every football game, and my aunt and uncle who live in Alliance have season football tickets and travel to every game. And so there are people in the Panhandle who do. And we have, I'm related to a lot of people. I say Brandon Vogel's my cousin. He's probably like my second cousin or something like that. It's hard to keep track of, but I grew up there. I'm the 5th generation of Delsings there. And, so we're all just kind of interconnected, a few pieces apart. But anyway, I have another, I'll just call her an aunt because I don't know how exactly we're related. But she's kind of the Husker ticket broker in Alliance. So she knows everybody who has season tickets. And if you have a weekend you want to go to a game, you just give her a call and she's like, oh yeah, I think so-and-so is not going. I'll see if we can get you their tickets to buy. And she just does it because she wants to do it and be connected and everything. I'm not sure if she still does now in internet age or not, but it was always just, call Kathy, she'll know.
That is what I love about this state as a community. It's one large Husker community. And we've heard this forever. People talk about where, especially in the smaller towns, when there's a Husker game, the towns close down because either everyone's at the local bar watching it on TV, or they're down in Lincoln, going to the game. And I can remember growing up and you'd have all the signs all around the stadium of, Alliancens for Nebraska and Scottsbluffsons, whatever that we call them, Columbusons and all that. And every town, they'd have some sign for them, but it's a collective thing. The whole state gets behind it. And it's the thing that brings us all together. And that's really, that's what the fan forum is about too. I love telling these stories and having people tell their stories of what it's like to be a Husker fan from completely different backgrounds, completely different, places and different time frames and everything. But when it comes to time frame, you had a great one to be there at Nebraska, and same with me. You were 95, right? You got there in 95.
Yep, we had it made, didn't we?
Oh my goodness! I mean, to try to tell, or I almost feel bad. I don't even want to tell the young kids right now. I mean, I feel bad, like we're the old people always saying, "Yeah, we won all the time," but we did. We never lost a home game, during my first 3 seasons there.
I was I hate to admit this, but I was a terrible fan. The first, my freshman year, I didn't stay till the end of each game. And I hate to admit that, but we would be thumping them so bad that people would be ready to go. And so I'd just go, and I would never leave a game early now, but I did that year, and just one of those guilty little confessions I have to make.
Well, that's maybe not your favorite fan memory, but let's go to question number 2. What is your favorite Husker fan memory?
So I was thinking about this, and it was really surprising to me that some of my favorite memories were actually games that we lost, which is really weird. But one of I'd have to say this was one of the coolest games that I've been to. It was 2006. So that was the first year that I had my season tickets. So they had expanded the stadium. I had a period there where, I was out of school, and then I grew up and I was adult and absolutely could not afford tickets, but and the wait list used to be years and years and years. So 2006, they expanded the stadium, and I got lucky enough to get tickets. And so the 2006 Texas game, it was It was a night game, which was always awesome.
Mm.
And we were playing them really good. I think they were ranked ahead of us. And, Texas night games had not gone so well in the past. And so it was a little touchy there, but we were doing great. And it got down. We were so close to them. It got down to, kind of the end of the fourth quarter. And it was just lightly snowing and it was dark. And so the snow was like coming down and the lights and everything. And we had this awesome drive and we got up. I think I had to look this up. I'm terrible at remembering games, but it was like 20-19. And the stadium was going nuts. And I just love yelling on defense. I feel like I have a moral obligation to help the defense out and, just completely scream my head off. And so I was screaming my head off. I couldn't even hear myself screaming. And it felt like we were making the snow come down. Like it was such a weird thing, but the louder we got, the more snow came down. And it felt like this weird crowd experience of we were in charge of the weather and we were going to make this game happen and we're going to win. And we ended up not winning, but dang, it was an amazing experience to be there.
Friend of the Redcast, Tyler Kai, who's associate athletic director, and he's been on here before. He would love to hear everything you just said there, because what you're talking about is it's the experience of being at the stadium. And we all, we all have the man cave, in the basement, the big TV, there's a lot of reasons that people can give not to go to games. The restrooms are right next to you. And I get that. And there's reasons why Trev is doing everything they can right now to try to, make Memorial Stadium as fan friendly as possible. But everything you just said there about the environment of being there in that kind of game, and you're talking about the snow coming down, just everything about it. That is, when that stadium, when the games are meaningful and they're big games, and that's what we got to get back to.
Yep.
No one's denying that. We got to get back to that. We got to do that this year. But imagine a 3-0 Nebraska hosting Oklahoma this year and what that environment would feel like. It's
amazing. And I'm the kind of person, like I have been known to cry during the tunnel walk, and I always get goosebumps. And there is just, I cannot overstate how much I love Nebraska football and love being in that stadium. That's like one of the biggest privileges of being alive, I think. Even when the games are terrible, I love being there.
Well, that you just set me up here, because here's the video I didn't show you from earlier, but this is one from the Husk Girls, but you talk about the lifestyle of loving Husker football.
Okay.
I'm kind of with you, Maddie, as far as like the lifestyle of just loving Husker football is what I love most. Like, I know some facts and I know some games and stuff, but dates always get away from me and all of that stuff. But I love being a Husker fan. Like, and I guess I don't have to prove it, because I kind of prove it before people asking questions. I've got the Cornhusker license plate in Montana. I was really pumped that I could get that when I moved here. I had a Husker garter for my wedding and ran into a Husker guy out there at the lake, like on the way to the altar, and stuff like that. And so mostly I just get teased for being the Husker fan, and people like to kind of poke me a little bit about the whole, you guys and your coaches and all of that stuff. But I love it so much I can't hide it. So then pretty much they just are okay with it.
At least I'm consistent.
And you've done this before. You love it so much you can't hide it, and that's a pretty good feeling there. And it's something that it's a prideful thing that us Husker fans have, whether we win or lose, and no matter how many seasons it's been since we've had that winning season, we still have that passion. And I don't think people outside of the borders or outside of the fandom, they don't understand it. I think they just assume that, okay, well, how many more losing seasons will it take before, we stop? And I can't speak for every Husker fan out there, but I can speak for myself. It's never going to stop.
No, I don't think it's, I think it's so much part of who I am. I don't think it's really possible to stop. I mean, I think it's a little blasphemous to say it's a religion, but really it is a religion. It's something I believe in, and it's part of who I am.
Let's see here. Let's go to question number 3.
Okay.
Who are your all-time favorite Huskers?
Oh, I'm terrible at this question. I think you tried to slip this one in on the Husk Girls show, and I decided that I'm just going to have to go with Garrett Nelson, because I'm going to show my Panhandle pride right now, and I'm going to go with my favorite on the team right now, and it gets me so excited when he is so pumped up and he's out there on the field and he's being proud and he's making these speeches about. I feel like he feels how I do about Husker football. And I love that. I used to get that same feeling from like Wistrom and the Peter boys and those good old 90s names. And I'm excited to have that back. And plus, go Scottsbluff.
Yeah, I mean, there's a Panhandle kid out there, and
Exactly.
a great example of, in this world of transfer portals and, some kid comes in, plays right away. Nelson's been here for 4 seasons. He redshirted, he worked his way up. He's built his body. He's done all the things, all the old school traits of Husker football. And here he is now. He's developed himself into a different player than he was when he got here. And, he talked last week about wanting to be be the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. And I'm not going to stop him.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and there, I can't get the quote right, but he was talking about, this is just who I am. My whole life has been leading up to this, and I'm, living the dream. I'm sure that's not what he said, but that same sort of thing. And I can't blame anybody for leaving early. I can't blame anybody for going into the portal, but I still love that dedication of those kids who will come in, as a walk-on, and maybe they never are great, but they're there and they're a Husker and they're working their butts off. And that, I don't know, that still means a lot to me.
Yeah. And we have a strong walk-on program there. We also, obviously Nelson was a scholarship guy out of Scottsbluff, and there's a scholarship kid next year, Knutson, coming out of Scottsbluff too. So Western Nebraska continues to be well represented there in Lincoln. We have a couple tweets here. Usually I do this earlier, but let me pull a couple tweets of the week out that we have. The first one, College Football Home said, what is your college football bucket list? Mine includes Army versus Navy, Iron Bowl, sailgating at Washington, sing country roads at West Virginia, and jump around at Wisconsin are just a few. And you responded, Nebraska Natty with Abby something and the rest of the Go Big Redcast crew. That would be awesome. Number 2, Nebraska Rose Bowl. Number 3, University of Montana for GrizzCat. You're going to have to tell me what that is in a second. Jump Around was 4. And then number 5, Texas A&M for the Weird Cheer Cult. I can tell you about that one. We've been to there. But what's GrizzCat, Montana?
So it's Missoula and Bozeman. So the University of Montana is in Missoula, and then Montana State is in Bozeman, and Missoula is the Grizzlies or the Grizz. And then they're the Cats down there. So it's just their in-state rivalry, but it's always a big game. And there's some real in Nebraska doesn't have it as much, maybe Lincoln, Omaha sort of in-state rivalry, but it's kind of like the Kansas K-State in-state rivalry thing. Bozeman and Missoula do not like each other very much. They'll all band together as Montanans when needed, but any other time it's a rivalry. We have offices. The company I work for has offices in Missoula and Bozeman, and we'll even have competitions between the two offices. So I need to get to one of those games. The pandemic has kind of put a lid on that, but there will be a time soon where I get to go to that.
And that would be fun. When we came out and saw you guys last summer, we did the RV trip, and it was my wife and son, and then my sister and brother-in-law, they came along too. And so, I always turn these trips into a Redcast road trip, and I didn't get out to Bozeman. I couldn't make the extra couple hours, but Missoula, we got to see the Grizz and where the Grizz play, and that's a great facility there. And then Montana State this year, I think they won FCS. I think they won the title, and they were hosting South Dakota State in the championship game. So it's on ESPN, cold as heck and snow coming down, which was awesome for a playoff game. And Redcast Boomer made a big point about that on Twitter. I remember he was saying, like, heavens forbid we can't have this at the FBS level. We can't have bowl games up north. We can't have Nebraska or, just some northern school hosting a southern school in December. That just can't happen in college football. And then here you are watching the championship game being played in Bozeman. It was a great setting.
Yep, it was great. They had so the way the news media works, we don't get a lot out of Bozeman. We mostly get the Missoula news and local stuff from there. But they were having putting calls out for people around Bozeman to just come and shovel the stadium. So just local, come and help us out. Bring your shovel and scoop out the seats. So that was awesome too.
That is awesome. Let's see. We've had a bunch of comments and stuff come in. What's this for? Oh, Marty Honke. I know her. We live in Columbus, so didn't get to actually go to many games, but always watch the games if they were televised, and definitely listen to Lyle Bremser on radio. It's in our genes.
Woman and child.
Oh, here's one from Spurs fan Gary. Were you pretty excited when Samari Torre transferred from Montana to Nebraska?
Yes, and our kicker for this year, who I'm blanking out.
Bashimi.
Yeah.
The
yes.
punter. Yep.
Yep. So I can't be totally, to be honest about it, I didn't watch them very much play at Montana, but it's kind of fun to just kind of jump on the bandwagon and be excited about it once they are in Nebraska.
Mm-hmm. Well, and here's Abby, as you mentioned, Abby something. This is Abby Harris, a Husk Girls football road trip. That would be a lot of fun there. Let's go back to tweets of the week. And this is another one that we had here. It's something we just posted, and you wanted me to grab a screenshot of this. So it's the Redcast annual preseason tradition. We go through the season game by game and get your thoughts on how the Huskers will do. And so we did this game by game on Twitter, and everyone has a chance to vote in the polls on that. So
yeah,
what were your thoughts on that?
So I thought this tied in really good to the fourth question of the fan forum.
Well, you know what? Let's go out of order.
Yeah.
Let's go question 4 with that in mind. How do you think the Huskers will do next year?
So I was going through the little preseason poll and everything, and I was finding myself about as excited as Redcast Rob, and I realized I needed to back down a little bit from 13-0. So I think I went 12-1.
Yeah.
I had of us losing to Michigan, and that's all.
Yeah. So I had the, I just had the 12 games of the regular season. That's the tradition of the Redcast poll.
Yeah.
And Rob's like, yeah, well, where's Ohio State on it? And I'm like, well, we don't play Ohio State. He's like, well, sure, we're going to in the championship. Okay, I get it. But, no, this is just the 12 games, Rob. That's why I didn't, of course, we could have added, 3 more games to it, right? He thinks we're going to go 15-0.
I need to make my correction to 11-1 instead of 12-1.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. Yeah. In fact, right now, and I mean, there's, 25 some thousand votes or whatever. And we started last night. So there's a couple more days, Redcasters, you can go out and vote on that. But with like 25,000 some votes, it is 11-1. The only game is Michigan. And that's like a 70% have Michigan winning it. That's the only thing that surprises me is that many people actually, I kind of thought that every game would either be extremely close or at least we'd be winning every one of them. And it's not if I feel like we're going to go 12-0 or not. That's not the point. The point of this practice every year is that people will be very reasonable minded, or they'll come in and go, Vegas says 7.5. I think we'll win 7. I think 8. Oh, maybe if we a couple bounces our way, we'll go 9 or maybe even 10 wins. Who knows? But then you actually stick the games in front of their face and they have to vote. And it's almost always like, well, we're not going to lose to Purdue. We're not going to lose to this team. We're not going to lose to that team. And you get done with it. It's like, oh no, I just made us 12-0.
Yeah, that's exactly how it was. Absolutely. If you just put the numbers in front of me, I never would have gone that high. But I'm looking at it. I'm like, yeah, I think we can do that. Well, gosh, we got to lose something. I guess I'll go Michigan.
Maybe that's why.
It might be Wisconsin, but I think I have a good chance of going to the game against Wisconsin, so I don't want to lose.
And that's the thing. It gets to be that what Vegas does, from an analytics standpoint, and they predict out, this is how many. The season doesn't work that way. If we lose that first game, and gosh, that's the worst thing in the world. I don't even want to say it, right? I don't want to speak it into existence, but. If you start 0-1, I don't know what the season looks like, but you go 1-0. You start with that win against Northwestern, and you come back and you build some momentum, and now you're 3-0. you're 3-0 at home playing Oklahoma. I mean, I'm looking at that, and that's going to be a hell of an environment. It's going to be an amazing place to be at. And then I started thinking about how we played them within a, one score last year, and the starting quarterback we had, had 6 touchdowns or 5 or 6 touchdowns against Oklahoma last year as the starter for Texas. So it's like, you start, okay, I can picture a win if we go 4-0, if we beat those guys. Now all of a sudden, I mean, and it's what we do every year, but it doesn't feel weird this year because the schedule does play out a lot nicer than what we've had in the past.
Yep, exactly. Last year looked pretty good too, and how that turned out. But yeah, exactly. I'm hoping that this year is the year. I think this is going to be it. I say that every year, but I'm really sure this time.
Jeremy goes, unrelated to GBR, but asks Amy, best fishing hole in Montana. Where's the we had Abby too. So, but
yeah, she was just on there. You can't give that kind of stuff away. I mean, I work for a company that has a hunting app also, and those things are secret. You can't give away your hunting spot, your fishing spot, or your huckleberry spot. Those things I have learned from being in Montana.
I am so not an outdoorsman. What is a huckleberry spot?
So they're little wild berries that grow in the Pacific Northwest area. They're kind of like a smaller blueberry, but have a little bit different taste, and they'll only grow in the wild, so you can't plant them at home. And so you have to go out on public land and you gather them, and then but anywhere you go that's touristy, like through Montana, Idaho, Oregon, any of that stuff, they'll have huckleberry everything, and most of it's just flavored syrups, but they are really good. Like it's pretty much bush to mouth when you're out there, and when they're ripe, they're delicious.
All I could think of was in the movie Tombstone. There's a part where a guy calling, I'm your huckleberry, and that I didn't realize there's an actual berry for that.
There it is.
Very cool. Let's see here. Actually, we didn't go out of order. We did ask 1, 2, 3, and 4, but
we're both good at math.
One spot, I want to go back to how we met each other, actually, because we met at the Instructional Design Center, and I already feel bad that I'm going to show this photo because it's going to come back to haunt me. But so we graduated at the same time. We even got our first job out of college. And, we were on the same team in the same, company for 1 year. So we graduated at the same time, and they gave us these briefcases. So they wrapped them up. And if you look close enough on my red wrapped paper, there's a Husker football on it. And then yours, it looks like, I think it's an apple, or is that peach or something?
I honestly can't tell for sure.
Or a huckleberry.
We're gonna have to call in on this. It's definitely not a huckleberry. I can tell you that much.
So this is the Instructional Design Center. Ken and Orville and Mike, and we had Lance Schwartz, who did a fan forum with us a couple months ago, and that was such a cool time. Again, you go back to the timing of when we were there. That it was the mid to late 90s. Huskers are winning titles. There's Lance with Husker Vision. And did you ever get to see any of did he ever show you any of the psych up tapes? Okay.
Yeah, that was the best. Like being there on a Friday, and he'd kind of like call us into his little video closet, and we'd all be packed in there in the dark watching Christian Peter spit all over the screen. It was a beautiful thing.
Oh my goodness. I mean, what a cool thing that was. And we, again, Redcasters, you can go back on YouTube. We have some videos with Lance, and he talks about this, and we have some of the psych up tapes, but yeah, he would show that to us. And then like the next day, that's the video that they're going to pop in the locker room right before they go out for the tunnel walk. And we've seen it, and our friend Doug, I remember one time we had a party at Doug's house, and I think he got one of the tapes from Lance, and like we were at a party just watching psych up tapes, and it was like a compilation of several years worth of them. And that's how we partied 90s style.
Oh, heck yeah. we were both both advertising majors too. So College of Journalism shout out there too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When journalism school was at Avery Hall, right next to Memorial Stadium. So I can remember we would occasionally have some test or something like that. and we'd be right next to the stadium. They'd be practicing, and then they on the big or on the loud screens or the loudspeakers, they'd have some artificial noise getting pumped in
Crowd
for the
noise.
game. And it's like, yeah, we're trying to take a test here.
Oh, but it was so cool too. Or they had before everybody knows how old we are. But they would bring in the lights too. There were permanent lights at the stadium. So they would bring in the semi trucks and set up the lights for the rare night game. And that was always cool too.
Oh man, that was such a fascinating time to be a Husker fan. Right when I was getting done with school. In fact, I was working at our first job out of college. That's when I did that Husker Chronicles website too. Buddy and I did, and that was the first iteration of website. So you didn't have to do anything crazy to have a really good site. I mean, there's like 500 Husker sites out there, and most of them were not good. And within 1 month, we were like the #1 site on the Husker fan web ring or something like that. And then we ended up getting to go to a couple games with like press passes, even because we were partnering with like a couple like really small news sources and stuff. That was just a fun time to be a Husker fan.
It was a fun time to be in tech, and it was a fun time to be a Husker. And you're kind of selling yourself short on your Husker Chronicles, because so what this was, folks, this was like a very in-depth, like this could have been a history book of Nebraska games basically. And Matt wrote it, just all spit it out, just all right there on the page. And it was excellently written. He asked me to edit it because I was also an English major, so I got to do that kind of thing. I'm like, shoot, this guy's pretty good. And it was really fun to read all of that. Does it exist anywhere at all anymore?
There's like the Wayback Machine on the internet that you can, and I think I have some floppy disk, and literally the floppy disk of it.
Probably our discs.
So I was going to do a big portfolio piece as a senior, advertising senior. I was going to create these magazines. And so I was writing all the stuff. I'd create all the content, and I'm creating these ad campaigns for it. And that was going to be my big piece. And it was going into my very last semester. My buddy comes back from Detroit, and he was a tech guy. And he's like, well, there's this thing called the internet, and, everything you've created, you were going to create the Husker Chronicles, the magazines. He goes, why don't we just create huskerchronicles.com?
I forgot.
And it's all there. So, I mean, all that history was there. And then we got to do some of the kind of the live stuff that was like, or not live, but it was, we created a Barstool thing where we could write a story each week. Or there was the Chalk Talk where we would like come up with plays. And this is where I started to understand like the power of the internet. We're getting emails from football coaches about plays that we drew up, and like there's some guy at ESPN contacting us, and we're like, what in the world is that? I remember going to you and asking your help with well, first off, I mean, you've worked with UX design your whole career, so I mean that was some of that back then, and I mean it was the editing of it, and I mean, and you get enough talented people and get all these contributions, and it was a lot of fun. It was just a lot of work too.
It was. Well, I think that's, really, that's probably a good step right into your Redcast, though. You've been doing the same stuff, just in different mediums as you go along.
Mm-hmm. And this is as much fun as anything because, this really is the interactive thing that we didn't get to do back in 2000 with Husker Chronicles, is to actually have fans, to meet people from all across the place. You include social media into it. But it was really cool. Like when we got to do the Husk Girls, you were perfect for it. I knew that we needed to have Amy, what she would bring to the group. And it was a lot of fun to do that. And hopefully we get to do another Husk Girls one. It's hard to get everyone together and everything, but that was really a fun one to do.
It was good. I made a lot of friends through that. And, who says social media is good for nothing? That kind of takes us full circle, because I was talking about how you get kind of isolated as a Husker fan when you're not living near Nebraska. But it's been really great to have, Twitter and be able to get into that community again and feel like you've got buddies watching the game there with you, because you're seeing them, tweet out their stuff, or meeting up with the Husk Girls and just having that thread of we did that one episode, but we've kept chatting with each other all through everything. And there's we talk about all the opportunities that UNL gives to people. The Huskers give a lot of opportunities too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's this Husker football thing, Husker sports in general. I mean, it goes beyond. I keep saying Husker football, but we are a Husker Athletics podcast, and you know what? Even just today, the Big Ten is the first conference to have a volleyball media days, and they hosted a volleyball media days today at the Big Ten headquarters in Chicago. That it's almost, I can't believe that's never happened before.
I couldn't either. I thought that was ridiculous when they said it was the first one, because I just assumed it went on every year and we just never heard about it.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that today and I was shocked.
So not only, so we're the first one, but that still means that literally every other conference out there hasn't done it, which is just
ridiculous.
There's a lot of progress being made, a lot of steps being made, but then you hear something like that and you're like, whoa, it almost takes you back, because you just assume that would have already been happening long ago.
Yep. Oh, and I was so pumped to see that Nicklin Haynes was getting to represent Adidas in their first group of 15 college athletes that could be Adidas athletes. And I felt like that wasn't quite publicized well enough either. Like, you just kind of come across these things. You're like, this is a really big deal. I wish somebody was shouting this at me a little bit louder.
Mm-hmm. Any of those weeks, gosh, I'm trying to think of any of those weeks that you might come back. Are there any volleyball games that same time, or, any way you can parlay it into a, kind of a full Husker week of stuff? But
I need to do that. I need to look at the schedule and find out, because that's one big regret that I had while I was in college, was I never did go to a volleyball game, or the whole time I was living in Lincoln, or even in Kansas City. You're close enough, you can go there. And I never did. And I've got to get to a volleyball game sometime.
Mm. Well, it's been everything I was wanting it to be here, Amy.
I had so much fun.
Well, I mean, did I miss on anything? Is there anything else you wanted to talk about that I haven't brought up here?
I don't think so. I think we got into everything that I was hoping to get into. I got to see some great pictures from the past and reminisce about the old days. And definitely. Your mom's going to love that one.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't have a brush or a hat or anything. Apparently, I didn't own any of that.
You were a penniless college student, obviously.
In Montana, is there any
Russia?
Montanans for Nebraska group or anything that you're aware of up there?
So I looked around, and I don't remember there being an official alumni chapter in Missoula. There might have been one in Bozeman. I can't remember, because I looked before I moved. Mm-hmm. And I thought in my head, gosh, Amy, maybe that's something you're supposed to start up, but I haven't yet. So we do have a couple of Huskers that I know, who live in this tiny little town that I live by in Hamilton, Montana. Mm-hmm. So I think that, we could do something, but it's just a matter of organizing it and the work that goes into it.
If you start anything up, the Redcast is happy to do anything possible to promote the Montanans for Nebraska group that you would put together. So
awesome. Well, maybe that's my next chapter.
Jeremy, crap, Amy. That's right. It was Amy, not Abby.
I was going to say, what's that about? Jeremy, you had me worried.
Yeah, Dougal, let's go, GBR. Husker Kara, GBR are going to be another awesome V-Ball season. Yes. And it will. It will.
Yes, it will be. I'm excited for that.
Don't have any doubts there. Well, as is tradition then on the show, you get the parting shot here, Amy. Mm-hmm. So anything that's on your mind?
I'm kind of, rolling around and glorying in Husker football excitement, with the first practice open to media day, or to the media, and coming off media days, and everybody firing up all of the preseason articles and getting down to the last month before the first kickoff. And it's a glorious time to be alive, 100% Kool-Aid right now.
100% Kool-Aid. We're undefeated. Great time of the year. Well,
off-season champions.
Off-season champions. That's right. Husk Guys is going to be very happy with you for saying that. Well, thank you so much, Amy. This is a ton of fun. Stay on after this, because I know we'll chat a little bit more afterwards. But Redcast Nation, thank you for listening. And remember, you could be the next one to join us on the forum.